Hey guys, this is Curtis from Graham Patina, and I'm sitting here with Maynard, who most of you guys actually probably have not heard of, because that's not a dig, Maynard. Maynard's the second half of Graham Patina, and welcome to our video.
Yeah, nice.
So I think today we don't have any crazy guests, so you're filling in.
Mm-hmm.
Big shoes to fill after we just spoke with Jacek from Tropical Watch.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about dive watches, because we do have quite a collection of dive watches, and we through our inventory we've always gone through between GMTs and Submariners. Those are ideally our bread and butter, would you say?
Yeah. Well, I think dive watches in general, for me at least, is when people always talk about tool watches, these are the ones that I really do consider true tool watches, because I feel like you could do anything in these, at least for the athlete or the sporty guy.
Or even the guy that is washing dishes, right? I sometimes have to remind myself, like, oh, I'm wearing a GMT. Maybe I shouldn't run my hands through the sink. But I mean, as long as you have it properly serviced, I mean, GMT should be fine. No knock there. As most of you guys will know, GMTs are one of my favorite watches. But Subs, I think, for the layperson, is the iconic Rolex, right? It's the Mustang, or it's the 911 of the Rolex or watch world. So we have a collection of a few dive watches here, and we kind of want to go through everything from the $3,000 to $4,000 range up to your $50,000, $60,000 range. And we have a good collection, I think, at this point in time, where we can talk about where your dollar would stretch and what price point you could get in and what watch you can get for that type of money. I think it's no surprise most of our watches here are Submariners, right?
Yep.
But we have two wild cards.
Yep.
And I think the first one we've been chasing for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
This is a Seiko Turtle 6306. And it's not just any or Seiko. It's a Scuba Pro edition. And this is something that we don't have exact numbers of how many were produced, but they were produced in the late 70s, right? Mm-hmm. What makes them so unique, I think, is that 6306s, Turtles in that 70s and 80s era, they sell for, today, they sell for about $1,000 to $1,300, depending on the loom, depending on the condition. But the Scuba Pros are creeping up almost 3 times that price. What I love about it is that I think a lot of people that are into vintage Rolex, they are familiar with Comex and this Comex branded Submariners. The Scuba Pro, I think, would be that for Seiko, right?
Yeah, it's that little additional detail that gets everyone excited about
Everyone
something.
loves Tiffany dials, Cartier dials, and obviously for the lesser known initiated people, Scuba Pro being that dive company that produces everything from regulators to fins that are used in the military to co-branded watches. And so these were sold not as a special limited edition, so there's no numbered edition on each watch, but I think the known references are 77, 78, and 79. I think some popped up in the late 80s, but those might be, I think, caseback swaps or service casebacks, etc. So I think what we'll do here is, talk a little bit about the different price points, and this one slots in right underneath $5,000, $4,000, correct?
Yeah, I think like you said, we've been chasing this for 4 years now.
Yeah.
And we've always been really selective and really kind of picky with what we bring into inventory and what we bring into stock. And this one was just so special that we decided to grab it. But it's already spoken for, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but it does hit that lower price range that Curtis is talking about, of getting into a piece at around $3,000 to $4,000, and I only see that going up.
But getting this in almost is exciting as like a 1680 or 5513 pumpkin. Like, to me, it's not necessarily the price point that we're talking about. It's not like I'm getting more excited because we're talking about a $50,000 Rolex, right? This to me is obviously more scarce, and I've never seen one in the wild, and it's always been on that elusive hunt, right?
Yep.
Where we're talking about, I think this is, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fake scuba pros out there. I mean, it's just basically a simple print that is on the 6306 dial. And the 6306 is the Japanese variant, or Japanese market only Seiko Turtle. This has the kanji on the date, and I believe it's a few additional jewels for the movement, but otherwise very similar to the 6309. One way you can spot what is an aftermarket dial, because I've seen them on eBay for $300, $400
Yep.
with the Scuba Pro tagline. But what most people don't know is that the text is not exactly white. It's like the silverish blue, almost light off-white, metallic. I would say it's metallic, a little bit metallic. It's a little bit reflective. But that's the kind of font color that you'll see on these true Scuba Pros. I've seen some with box and papers. Those are long gone. I haven't seen any pop up recently. The other thing is you're going to notice a bevel on the dial where the date window appears. It's like a deeper bevel. And then on the bottom of the font, you're going to see 700JT, whereas the regular one is missing the T on the end, I believe. But regardless, this is one of those cool watches that flies under the radar. You don't have to be self-conscious wearing this around, and this is, quite honestly, going to be my daily beater for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I hear you have one coming in.
And I have one coming in too, so
we're going to be matching.
we're going to be twinsies.
Yeah.
I think.
Would you dive with this watch? I mean, would you go in the ocean? Would you jump in the pool with this? And
Yeah.
not feel...
So I mean, we were talking about like surfing and all that stuff, and this would probably be my surf watch. And that's why I'm excited about it too, is because I could throw it on and it just fits.
And it feels special still. And it's not like, I mean, I'm going to cry if I did lose this or if there is water damage, but I'm not going to cry like I would a $30,000 Gilt 5513.
Well, and the funny part is, I know you had said when it came in we were really excited about it, but it really was like, I remember we were tracking it on the tracker compared to some of the other pieces we get, and we were like, when is it going to come? When is it going to come?
Yeah, and seeing it in person, in the flesh, it wears so well, especially on the rubber strap. It's just an iconic design and iconic watch to us. But not to jump into the Seiko fan train but let's talk about Submariners, right? And we've talked about neo-vintage subs for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Maybe not as long as Tim. He'll never let me live that one down. But we have two really cool Spider Dial 16800s. And I know we just sold, I wish we had the other one. We had the 68000.
Yeah, we had this 000. That went super fast.
Yeah. So I think there is a movement of people that used to want to buy 5-digit subs because they were good value. And now I'm seeing it as they are really buying it for what its true nature is which is transitional watches. So these 5 digits, it's not like, oh, I only have $7,000 to spend or $8,000 to spend. They're looking at it as, no, this is uniquely different from a 4-digit 1680, or it's different obviously from the newer Luminova stuff.
So the reason I really like these transitional pieces is because it gives people an opportunity to enjoy the best of both worlds. You got the sapphire, and you still have the character of tritium, and then the bezel aging, and the patina from...
And the gloss dial. And both of these, both 16800s here, you can see one is a very nice black bezel, very nice yellowish lume, but both have spider dials, which, quite honestly, we never wanted to carry before because we never found one that was very attractive. We sold one that was recently 5513 to our good friend, but I'm starting to get the spider dial bug. I kind of like seeing that it looks like a perfect dial, when the light is not on it directly. But then if you catch it at the right light, you see this like kintsugi style spidering that it's almost like little lasers that are bouncing around the dial.
And that might be one of our things of like not actually having it in our hands to be able to really say, this is what we love about it, right?
Right.
Like having it in hand and being able to see it and feel it firsthand and know the experience, that's what makes us fall in love with these things.
So yeah, I've been wrong before, right? And just as I have been slow to adopt the 5-digit model range for Rolex, I think I'm slow or behind the ball on these spider dials because seeing them in person, as you said, it has a completely different feeling, different take on it. And I don't think anyone is wrong here. Like, if you think it's a broken dial, you're right. You're right. And if you think it's a beautiful patina wabi-sabi effect, you're also right. And so I think that's the way I would collect this. If it doesn't look right to you, don't get it. Don't get caught in the hype.
I think the other thing that you and I both appreciate about 5 digits, or at least transitional watches right now, is that you still have the opportunity to also grab it in new old stock form or unpolished cases or really, really good overall quality. And that's getting a lot harder on the 4-digit side to really grab. So, you know, if our collection mentality is to get the best, you know, this is really kind of that opportunity.
It's completely obtainable within the vintage market side of things. I think 4-digit stuff is, exceptional 4-digit pieces are getting increasingly out of most people's price range. And that's just simply due to scarcity, right? So we have these 16800s between, I think, the 10 to 11 range, simply because they're so unique in what they offer. This black one, I believe look at the bevels on this.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
And it still has the case back sticker, which I think is really cool.
Yep. And then this one has this lavender-ish hue on the insert. The last one we sold, do you remember that one?
Yep.
Same condition, maybe not spider dial, but that went so fast. And then got resold by 2 or 3 other dealers.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't ask enough, right? So 16800s for our next segment. But let's jump back, right? Because now we're in the $12,000 to $13,000 range for a 4-digit 1680. I still think these watches are soft in comparison to their non-date counterpart, the 5513. And I think they look equally as good. I get the case. I understand why someone would want the symmetrical dial that doesn't have a date. It's just a simpler look. But I don't know if I would pay an extra 20%, 30% premium for that. You know, and I think for those people that want to get a really good condition sub that's going to appreciate, I think you can't go wrong with a 1680. This one in particular has, I think this is a True Dome crystal on it because it doesn't have the Cyclops. And it's got a beautiful, beautiful yellow patina on the dial.
Yeah. And I kind of see it as like a brother to the 5513. And to me, those are kind of my ultimate watches. Those are the ones that I really gravitate towards and just have an eye for.
The other thing I notice is if you look at the lume plot size, right? This is a late 70s. This is during the same era that maxi dials were being made for the 5513.
Yeah.
These lume plots are the same size. I mean, it just doesn't have the cool moniker of having maxi dial 1680, right?
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, they look just as chunky to me. And I think most GMTs in that 77, 78, 79 era have those chunkier lume plots. So the next watch we have here is not a Rolex, and it's a little bit of, I don't know, it's a wild card, right? Would you say?
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's one of those things where we've actually been looking for a really good example of this as well for the last 4 years.
And you know, the Japanese market loves these. Anytime I've tried to get one, it seems like I missed out and it end up in Japan. But this is a 166.024 Seamaster 300, and this is, I've named it the anti-sub.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Sure.
We're throwing out more stupid superhero names for these new Rolexes, so why not? The anti-sub, big triangle.
Okay.
And I think this is early 60s or maybe late 60s. Not sure. I'll have to check. But it wears so well on the wrist, and for another watch that is specifically meant for diving, it's just such a cool, rebellious look, and almost anti-establishment when you're talking about subs and obviously Seamasters.
So the thing I like about this Seamaster or Seamasters in general is I like this classic look. This original design to me.
Sword hands, military look. That's exactly what most military watches will look like.
Exactly, and I know every year people are expecting a new release and they're disappointed with Rolex, for example, because they didn't change enough.
Right.
But that's what I like about Submariners is they didn't change too much of their identity. You look at a 1960s Submariner and you look at a Submariner now, and it's barely noticeable the changes. The thing that I think Omega, unfortunately messed up on is that I think that they changed the look of their Seamaster so much that I can't see a
evolution, a consistent evolution throughout.
Yeah, and it's a shame because the design of the Seamaster 300, really, I love this one. The big triangle, the sword hands, like you said.
Unpolished.
The bezel, I kind of think of this as like if I were to compare this to a a military Rolex sub, this would be it, These
sword
are
hands,
comparable
yep.
in design.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate that they changed it, because this is, I see this and I get excited about
We
it.
had a 165.024 recently, and that quickly went to a collector, sold within a couple days, but it was not the big triangle. But I think out of all the subs that we get, it's not for lack of effort that we don't try to get these watches. It's just that they go really fast. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited to actually have one finally in our collection. Still have never had to explore in our lineup. But we won't get into that.
And so the other part to add to that though is the range on the Seamaster 300s that we like.
Yeah.
They only made them for a few years. We can't, once they cross into the 80s, 90s, and 2000s,
You're
we're
right.
out on Seamasters.
Yeah.
So we don't like any, you and I personally don't like any of those. And so that's part of the reason why we haven't ever picked one of these up, because we haven't seen one that we liked. And there's not a lot out there.
I agree.
Especially the lume plots are always pretty dirty. And, I love how we got a clean example of this one. Unpolished.
Are you keeping this?
I don't know.
Do you love it?
I'm keeping everything.
I know. So quickly moving on. We're at, 13 on this?
Yeah. That's about the 13 range. And
so I think between the two, right? I mean, this would be a hard toss-up. Super clean 1680 versus a Seamaster 300 big triangle. To me, right, I think that it's easy for me because I touch the 1680 and 5513s all day. This to me gets me very excited. Maybe because it's different, but it's not for everyone. It's someone that I think is still chasing after a Rolex. This slots in perfectly.
Yeah.
I think most people can pull this off, more so than the Seamaster 300.
I think if we even just consider the comparison, right? If we consider the comparison to that, the one that would be produced for that would be like a meters first sub 5513 probably, and
late 60s, right around there. That would be in that same price range. But I flip out over this if someone wore this to a get together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know it's not a blue dial, but the matting on it just makes it look so much lighter. It's almost got like a bluish hue to it. I dig it. So jumping right back into Rolex, because I don't want our vintage Rolex clients and followers to think that we are not giving enough props to the Submariner, because here we have two amazing gilt subs. One is a 5513 non-chapter ring, and the other is a 5512 chapter ring. And prices are quite different between the two, right?
They're crazy.
I think the 5512 Gilt chapter ring we have at 51,000, and this 5513, which seems like such a steal, is almost less than half of that.
Yeah.
Can you explain why? Why is it that there's such a big gap between the price range?
I think it's just years of production to start off with, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the chapter ring ones were only produced for a couple of years, whereas these were produced for, double that. So, by nature, the amount that are out there.
But aesthetically, right, we're also talking about, we're in the business of details. We're in the hobby of details, right? And so the chapter ring, when people say chapter ring, what they're referring to is the outer circle that frames the dial of the watch, right? Whereas a 5513 Gilt non-chapter, the hash mark pretty much ends at the edge of the dial, right? I think both watches are untouched, maybe a sleeve polish on both, a super cool rivet bracelet on the 5512, and a folded link bracelet on the 5513. Amazing, amazing pieces.
There's an exclamation dial.
Oh, that's right. We are in the business of details, and I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maynard. That's why you're here. Exclamation dial, meaning the little dot underneath the 6 o'clock plot?
Yep. But in addition to that, I mean, it just becomes rarity and
scarcity.
I think that's part of what drives the prices and why this is double.
So we're talking about 25,000 for the 5513, and then 50,000-ish for the 5512, right?
Yep.
I don't know if it's double the watch, but for me, it's an easy pick of the 5512 if I had to choose between the two. But the Asian side of me wants a good deal. Not to say the 5512 is not a good deal, but man, I love both. They're very, very crazy watches, and quite honestly, for me, that's the pinnacle of a dive watch for me, is Gilt chapter ring, 5512 Submariner. And we've had only a couple this year. But I'm glad to hang on to this for a few more days. Maybe it'll be sold, maybe it won't, and I get to wear it.
I really do dig the 5513.
Perfect plots.
Yeah.
Perfect plots on it. Excellent case as well.
The Asian side of me also really would rather pick this up at half the price.
Half the price?
Yeah.
Is it today only? So
no, I mean half the price of the 5512.
Yeah, but you pick that up and I wear that, and you're gonna be able to stare at my watch instead of your watch.
I know, that's the bummer.
So guys, that kind of gives you guys the gamut of what we are talking about when we're talking about vintage timepieces, specifically dive watches. Everything from the $4,000 range to the $50,000 range. Obviously, there's things that will slot here and there, but these are our picks, and this is kind of what we gravitate towards. We'd love to get into another episode of this with maybe the GMT.
Yeah,
which I think would be very, very fun.
Definitely.
But until then, be safe, guys. We'll talk to you soon.